What do CEOs need to know about sales these days? A lot. Outdated sales strategies and tactics plague most companies today. Listen to what innovative CEOs and experts have to say about how to change all that with Sales Talk for CEOs. Oh my gosh, we have a topic today to cover that is hot. It's all over LinkedIn, it's all over the news. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody is talking about generative AI. Probably you've heard it called Chat GPT. They are not one and the same, but we will get to that in a moment. So, all of this chatter about ChatGPT and how people are using it and salespeople are using it, well, there's some good to this and there's some bad to this. But here's the key: we really want salespeople to be able to use AI tools productively. We want them to be able to use it so it helps them get more sales conversations because that's what every salesperson wants and what every sales leader and every CEO wants for their salespeople, for them to be on the phone talking to humans who can buy from them. And so we want to use these AI tools really well to help salespeople do that. So, enough with the nonsense. I found an expert and I brought the expert on the show today. Now, this expert also happens to be my friend and the CEO of XIQ. Welcome, Usman.
Thank you, Alice. Always a pleasure to be with you on your show. You've always got great, exciting questions and great topic to be talking about today.
Yes, indeed. And last time we were together, you shared about how you grew your own company, XIQ, how you started sales, how you grew sales, and that's all pretty exciting. But today we really want to tap into your expertise. And I think this is such an important topic because it's just everywhere. And every conference I've been to lately, almost every conversation I've been in lately, somebody is talking about Chat GPT and asking me, should salespeople use it? Shouldn't they use it? Should marketing use it? Who should use it? How should they use it? I'm like, stop. I'm not a Chat GPT expert, but I'm learning more and more about it. But the thing that I'm concerned with most is that people just don't even understand what is AI, what kind of AI is ChatGPT, and what are we really talking about here? So let's start there, Usman. Let's really define it because I mean, ChatGPT is a type of AI. There's other AI too. So let's just talk about what is AI and where does ChatGPT fit into that?
Yes, so great question. So, AI, as it's been traditionally known as artificial intelligence, I think that artificial part is evolving into assisted or augmented intelligence. How
Yes.
does it work? Well, traditionally, what AI does is it looks at pattern recognition. There's machine learning algorithms that are built in. These algorithms can recognize patterns and they can then start projecting and forecasting what the next pattern would look like.
Yeah.
And that's been existing, that's been used in a lot of robotic process automation. So, repeat kind of tasks that are taking place, making them more intelligent, collecting data in there, infusing data within that as well.
Yeah.
And now, lately, you've started hearing the term generative AI. And
Yes.
ChatGPT is kind of like the poster child of this generative AI. What is generative AI? Is the ability to again take these pattern recognitions and these forecast and predictions that it's doing to the next level. And it has added this ability to make it conversational. So these are known as large language models. And these large language models are basically how people talk. You can kind of put this AI to work to help you do research. Where is it going to go do research? It's going to go to a corpus. What is a corpus? A corpus is like a database. It's a collection of content that has come together. And ChatGPT, it's very extensive. It has the entire internet up to September 2021 as its corpus. So it can go refer to, it's cataloged the internet up to that point. It can go refer to news stories, company websites, and so on. And it can pull in from books, encyclopedias, Wikipedias. It can go and pull information from there. And then in a very conversational way, it can construct answers, white papers, blogs, emails, um, um, fiction books if you wanted to. It can write all that kind of stuff, and that's the generative AI piece of that. And there's some very interesting use cases to that, which we'll be discussing as we go through the conversation.
Right. Okay. So there's AI, artificial learning, or I prefer, like you do, like an augmented learning, right? That the machines can do. And the machines can be trained and they can learn and they can really help us a lot. I have some deep concerns about chat gpt, especially when it is used as a standalone, Usman, because I've seen some pretty crazy things. And in case you haven't heard this yet, chat gpt hallucinates. It can, I mean, it just makes stuff up, right?
Fill in the
And
blanks.
so we have to be really careful. It needs to be human verified. Plus, the fact that you said the information it's pulling from stops in September of 2021, 2 years ago, right? So we've got to be careful there as well. But that, all that said, there are some other cautions as well. There's issues around copyrights and things that we're not really going to get into today. But what I do want to get into is how can salespeople, marketing people, customer success, people who face the customer, how can they use AI, and specifically this generative AI, to really help them communicate better? Because I've tried ChatGTP a couple of times, and it does write pretty well. Whether it's factual or not, it's grammatically correct and it sounds pretty good, you know? So people could be fooled by all of that. But let's talk about how we can put generative AI to good use, and how can companies ensure that salespeople and customer facing employees can actually use this for good.
Yeah. So I think you started off by saying what are the sort of the big cautions? Where does this go wrong potentially? So a couple of things to be aware of. As you said, September 2021 is when the kind of currency of that database expires, right? However, if you were doing a research paper on Macbeth or on works of Shakespeare or on the ancient philosophers or in history, excellent tool to do that because all those things have happened. It can go back, pull that information. However, if you were doing next generation research and development, or in our particular case, the sales scenarios. So, that's where you need to be very cautious as to what is the source of the information that the generative AI is pulling from. The large language model, what is it turning to refer to pull that information? So
Right. Because, for example, if I was trying to sell to Silicon Valley Bank right now and I tried to use Chat GPT to help me, it wouldn't know the recent occurrences at Silicon Valley Bank.
exactly correct. Exactly correct. Or let's take it even to a more practical sales oriented use case. Let's say you wanted to identify what were some of the key pain points that the Silicon Valley Bank was experiencing to be able to sell them your latest, for example, Dell server, right? This is where Chat GPT in its current incarnation will fall short. Why? It doesn't know about the current problems of Silicon Valley Bank, and it doesn't really know about the latest Dell servers either, right? Because 2021 was a long time ago. Dell's been producing a lot of new
Yes.
machines. Your products have been going through a lot of evolution. So that's where you have to draw the line. So that's the cautionary part. However, as you said, the language is really good. It sounds really good. How can we make it more productive? So, as you know, I run the company XIQ. It's a database of for designed for businesses. It has up to the minute information on companies, their financials, their C suites, and also we have used AI, the traditional form of AI, to be able to predict the personality types of individuals. So it's a really interesting corpus which is
Yeah.
much more up to date. Now, if you were to query XIQ's database with, if you were to query XIQ's database with with ChatGPT, for example, we will be able to predict what are the problems of Silicon Valley Bank and what is the latest Dell server, because we would have that information in our database. And now this becomes really interesting, right? Because it depending on how you use it, I've seen some widget type of applications that were created. Give me the trends in the insurance industry. They'll give you really good trends in the insurance industry, except up to September 2021, right? And as we know, in the last since September 2021, the rate of change in every dimension has been extremely high, fast, right? And therefore, a lot of things have changed at a very rapid pace. So the corpus, very important. Is it up to date? And then ChatGPT, the large language model, if you were to combine them in a responsible manner, you can come up with great productivity gains.
Absolutely. Now, there is one other thing that popped into my mind. If salespeople sales engineers or any customer facing person is using, especially Chat GPT, to construct an email to a customer, which is going to contain some sensitive information about their company, they need to know that that information will be taken in and shared back out. Now, in not in this generation of ChatGPT, but in the next generation of ChatGPT, which isn't out yet. And so sometimes when we're responding, and we're going to send some quote information or some very specific product information, we do need to be careful when constructing these emails with this information in it using ChatGPT, because it will now take that information, and that information will now be readily available to anyone else. So that's another caution I just wanted to point out for sales, and it's something that CEOs need to know. We're going to get to that at the end. Like, what is it that CEOs need to know about this to make sure that it's being used properly with their company? But there are many other cautions as well, but that was just one that popped into my mind. So let's just stay on this sales question for a minute about what sellers should be using AI for and what they shouldn't be using it for, and how they can use it for the greater good. So, yeah, they can use it to learn about their prospect. So let's start there and talk about what kinds of things can they learn about their prospect or their customer using AI.
Yeah, excellent. So, number of things. So, first of all, if you don't mind, I will refer to XIQ because I really believe in how this AI is actually being put to work. For example, as I said, up to the minute news and information, financial information, we can turn our AI towards that corpus, towards their database, and we can generate SWOT, strength, weakness, opportunity, threat kind of analysis on the fly. Now, this is a tool set that is absolutely mandatory for every salesperson. Every salesperson, the moment you get business, one of the key drivers for a salesperson getting business is when the customer gets to say, "You really understand my business." That's like the
Right.
golden words every salesperson wants to hear. But how do you get to understand that business? There is, in the traditional pre AI world, that's a lot of work. And a lot of salespeople are either not equipped or not experienced or don't have the skills in how to collect this information. So they have armies of analysts sitting in the background manually calculating this, bringing this information forward, and it's outdated by the time it hits the street, right? Silicon Valley Bank example would absolutely apply over here. Doing a SWOT analysis on Silicon Valley Bank 3 weeks later would be totally different. Now, doing research and getting this kind of SWOT analysis into the hands of salespeople in a very easy to read manner is absolutely fundamental. And AI can do that for you. So in XIQ, for example, you can go into a company and there will be an up to the minute or at least up to 1 month old SWOT analysis. And we are coming up with a generate refresh button on that. So live you can collect information and write that up.
Yeah.
That's super, super important. That's a super valuable use case. Another example is that about leading towards personalization. And the first step in personalization is getting to understand the mindset, the behavioral type of your prospects. Who is the person that you're selling to? Until now, it has relied upon an individual's, a salesperson's personal intuition to be able to gauge and judge who the person is they're selling to. It
Well,
has
and hold on for a second to that because remember back when you and I were young, I know that was a long time ago, but when we were selling, we used to be able to walk into somebody's office, right? And we could look around and see what books they had, if there were pictures on the wall, what was on their desk. Like we could gather a lot of that kind of intelligence from being in their environment, even from walking in the door to see what kind of building it was, what kind of people were around, what the decor was, all of that, right? It started to give us a sense, a feeling, right? Before, this was before we really had computers for common use. That's how old I am. But anyway, I know you're nowhere near that old, Usman. But I'm just saying we had some other things, right? Now, where everything is so digital, yes, people put their digital footprint out on the internet, but it's scattered all over. And we really need the AI to scoop the data for us and bring it right back to us the way it would have been in that environment where we got to walk in the door and see it and feel it for ourselves. And your software does this, and others as well, where you can say, I want information on this particular company and these people, and it will scoop it for you and bring it to you so that you don't have to do hours and hours of searching, which is really important for salespeople. And it kind of goes back to something that I've been talking about a lot lately, which is just basic business acumen, right? Salespeople need that more than ever now. It's not enough for them to just know their product and know their own company or even know, their industry and customer a little bit. They need some business acumen. And the only way they would possibly have time to stay current on everything that's happening in the world, in their industry, at their customer base, is if they have one of these scooping mechanisms that feeding it to them. So talk some more about that because I love that, especially in XIQ, like it scoops me the what they're posting on social media. It scoops me the news though, like from news sources. And now you're saying it's scooping up information and putting it into this format of SWOT analysis as well.
SWOT analysis. So first of all, absolutely correct. We could walk in, you could meet post pandemic, and this had started, breaking. We had started breaking away from physical in person meetings for some time, but the pandemic came and it mandatorily shut down everybody from being able to meet. And a couple of things happened, right? CFOs realized that actually the sales results were better without ever having to send people over to Las Vegas, and they saved a lot of money. So one of the things, so how do you now in this virtual environment that buyers, by the way, prefer? How do you get to build that personal relationship? And that's one point. Second is there is so much data in the sales process, the people, the company, the events, the
Yeah.
competitors. Everybody is generating information today, and there is so much information, right, out there, that it is humanly impossible for you to collect it and
Yeah.
make it into some kind of viable nugget that you can use and to express and establish your business acumen. Even if you were inclined and you understood how to interpret that data, it's just not possible to get your hands around all of that data, right? So, this is again coming back to AI. In the first case, the individual's digital public signatures, right? Your LinkedIn, your tweets, your blogs, you being in the news, now talking on videos. There's a lot of information that is publicly available, can be analyzed, and can
Yeah.
be synthesized into these projections of how to engage with the person. And I know you want to get something in there, but I'll even talk about a little bit about how you can not only collect this information, but now you can, with generative AI, you can actually put it to use, right? So that's one thing. And then the SWOT, as you were saying, enhance your business acumen by really getting a cheat sheet of what's happening within the company and their pain points. And it's become that simple. right? For people to get elevate their level of understanding and being able to personalize. Please.
Yeah. Well, in the world of sales today, and especially in the world of complex sales, which is where you and I live, um, we got into this crazy, fast-paced, high-volume SDR model, burn and churn. Just crazy from SaaS. Really, SaaS is what started that, right? And that whole idea that we have to have tremendous volume to get the output that we need. And I think that it did work for a while pretty well, but now we absolutely have to pay attention to quality and less to quantity. Look, in the end, we both know sales is a numbers game, right? If you make one call a day, you got one chance to sell to somebody. If you make 10 calls a day, you got 10 chances. So, got it. But we don't need thousands when we have high quality. And I think that now that we have the generative AI to help us, we can really turn our sales force on that quality initiative versus quantity. Quit sending 1,000 emails. Send 100 a week that are highly customized. Now, if I have this business acumen at my fingertips, right, where I scooped all this information using a tool like XIQ or any other, where I get all of this at my fingertips. And with XIQ, I even get this SWOT analysis that was generated for me. Now, before I start the email or my next phone call, I am armed with great data that I can provide as insight, that makes me ask better questions, that shows the customer, as Samantha McKenna would say, show me you know me, right? It shows the customer that I know them and they're not wasting their time, and I'm not having to sit there ask questions that they're like, this is common knowledge. Why would you be asking me this? Right? It's all over the internet. So we then get our salespeople so much more prepared to have a high quality conversation that they don't need to have as many, and their close ratio goes up.
Exactly correct. Let me share some stats with you. So, stats that are our own. So, first of all, let me just comment. XIQ has introduced this capability of being able to take your personality insights, couple it with your SWOT analysis, take your input, use the large language model that is ChatGPT, and generate these highly personalized emails. And where these come in handy in the complex sales cycle, for example, is we're selling to over 12 individuals. Some of them we're never going to meet during the course of the sales, right? But being able to custom tailor an outreach, whether that's an ad campaign, whether that's an email, whether it's a marketing campaign. Now we have the capabilities of being able to talk specifically to each one of those individuals. So we started using this for ourselves. We take everything that we drink our own champagne, and we started using this almost about 6 weeks ago. And I'll talk a little bit about productivity as well. And in the 6 weeks, our demo count has gone up by 400%. 400%. Our engagement, our open rates have increased by 31%. And then the click through numbers have increased by 47%. Okay, 400%. So that's the outcome, right? At the end of the day, the reason we are sending emails is to get demos. So
Exactly.
so we are
Unbelievable. By the way, bravo, right? I mean, magnificent.
we're very excited. Now, I cannot hire people to do 400% extra demos at the same pace as I'm bringing in demos.
No.
But right, and nobody can, and especially in this very fast moving, high attrition kind of an environment, it's just not possible. So now I'm going to address your question about the thousands of emails. We should not be judging new paradigms and new technologies that are going to change these paradigms based on tools, techniques, and methods and metrics that apply to old paradigms, right?
Right.
So, for example, I used to be a proponent of got to send out more emails, got to have a bigger list of people. But now I have 400 more percent more demos coming up, but I don't have the same staff to handle those demos, right? So what I'm saying is, I'm saying, hey guys, let's go and be more precise. Let's define our ideal customer profile tighter.
Yeah.
Let's not go to everybody. Alice, yesterday we actually removed a couple of industries that we were targeting from our ideal customer profile because it was just now it was bringing in garbage. The traditional thing was we were sending out garbage, right? Now it was bringing in clients and prospects that did not meet our criteria because we now have to be very selective of taking our sales force, even though their productivity has gone up, right? Because that
Yeah.
31% higher open rate, the 47% higher click rate means that our sales guys are also getting more through to their customers, right? So, in a shorter period of time, and I think you shared a post with me about this where the Salesforce productivity had gone up and they were doing more business now with less people or the same amount of people, right? And that's the paradigm that we need to start thinking about, right? Because we're not going to get people, right? And the
Right.
way we sell, we're selling, a lot of people left a lot of the veteran salespeople left the industry when they were forced to go on video because they considered it a downgrade into going and becoming inside sales reps or SDRs. They thought that getting on a video and talking to a person was below them because they used.
And the so uncomfortable with it that they just simply
There you
didn't
go.
want to do it. They didn't want to learn how to do it.
Exactly correct, right? So we have less experienced people. The rules of how we engage have entirely changed. And so we have these inexperienced younger group of people that are coming in and they need help in being able to build the relationship. The foundation of our company was what are the best practices of the top 5% of B2B salespeople? And how can we take those? And what were those? Those were understanding your client, understanding what they did, what their preferences were, what their company did, the business acumen part of it. Those were the factors. And they, on top of that, had networks of people that would provide them with intelligence. That was the old way of doing business. Young people and somebody entering sales does not have the advantage because the way you build those networks and get those information streams coming to you takes a lot of time. And we are under a lot of pressure to perform and bring results right now. So that's where these tools can come in and augment your ability to do that. And in doing so, it's the wisdom of those top 5% that is available through tools like XIQ to help elevate the next level or somebody entering into the field of sales now, right? And so this
Yeah.
email, I think this is a cautionary word, right? The email. So if as we were talking about in the prep over here, just going out to chat GPT and writing an email, dangerous, very dangerous. Why? Because the information is not going to be there, is not going to be current. Second thing is that highly proprietary information that's going to distill out onto chat gpt, and who knows where it goes. Anybody could potentially use it. However, so one caution would be, don't put out your proposal and your price quotes and your special offers into a chat gpt and do that. Don't do that. But there are a lot of there are, what is it, like 22 different touch points that need to happen before somebody first time engages with you, right? And that number keeps going up. So if you're going to reduce those numbers, you need to have better conversations, you need to have better communications. And how do you do those better communications? You can use these kind of tools, the personality, the business insights,
Hmm.
large language model, your product information, combine those, let the AI, the generative AI, come and query these. And the role of the salesperson, interestingly, becomes that of being able to write these prompts. So, so the core capability is how do you write the prompt? And if you think about it, I've seen, I coach a lot of people because we sell this technology, and I see how they write these. And they sometimes are even saying thank you or please when they're writing a code prompt to chat gpt. It's a machine. You don't need to say thank you and please do it, right? That's the good news about it. Having said that, the way they compose these prompts are very kind of strict. But what the salesperson needs to say do, and this is where we've struggled in the past, Alice, is that salespeople need to think through the process of what they want to communicate to their
Right.
person. right? So that's one thing, the steps of what I want to get across to you. Now, second challenge, huge challenge, is how do I write it in a concise manner? This is where almost 99% of people kind of
Well, not only that, how do I write it in a concise way for you? Because you might like a lot of detail, whereas the three other people on the buying team that I also have to communicate with do not want any detail. And I have to be smart enough to know that as a seller, or I'm going to get some people's attention, but not the others because they're not even going to read. If I sent everybody that same email with all that detail, they're not even going to read it.
that is correct. It has to be really, it has to resonate with you at an emotional level, at a
Yeah.
personal level, and at a business level. Those are the three gating criterias for why I would want to engage, right? Is it personal? Does it light a fire within me? Does it get me excited? And does it make business sense? Right? All those three things. And that's a tall order. That's a tall
Yeah.
order for anyone. But it's an achievable order with these tool sets. And this is why I keep saying, saying things like, hey, we're going to send 1,000 garbage emails out because, or now we have, write a quality email. I was talking to a client, write a quality email. They said it took their sales guys about half a day to a day to write one decent email. And then I have a pressure, hey, multiply this by 1,000 times, right? So what am I going to do? I'm going to cookie cutter that approach, and I'm going to send that same template, dear Alice, dear Usman, dear Joe, dear Adam, and I'm going to send it out to every one of them, right? Same content. And I'll have a hit and miss because some of those people that are similar to Alice for whom I wrote the email, they might appreciate it. But the other, you know, 90% might not, right? And that's a
Right.
delete. And so, but now when I can compose, as you were saying, these highly personable business oriented emails that make sense, my open rates jump up, my engagement rate goes up, and therefore I don't need to do that. And you know I there's a lot of trepidation about this generative AI and a lot of negativity, mostly coming from these sales gurus that have existed for some time, right? And one of the errors that they're making is they're not taking into account that the rules that existed, that and there's a lot of bad behavior. I fully agree. At the sales leadership level, there's bad behavior out there, right?
Hmm.
However, there is now remedial actions. People will realize when the floodgates open that it's not that easy to take all that business in and then deal do the physical things that you still need to do in a proper manner.
There are some gurus out there that don't want sellers maybe using ChatGPT or any kind of generative AI. And I think one of the interesting things for me is that what we all want, and I started the show this way, and time to say it again, what we all want is sellers to have more sales conversations, right? Now, anything we can do to make them more productive on the admin side of things allows them to have more time to have sales conversations. So in my mind, it's not a matter of um do it or not do it. It's like, how do we do it? How do we train them to do it well, right? Use the AI really well so that more and more of their time is freed up to have conversations with humans. And as you pointed out, if we use this generative AI really well and we scoop all of this information in so we have lots of business acumen, then we can use that to have better conversations, be they synchronous or asynchronous, whether it's on an email or in a LinkedIn message or a post that we make to draw our audience to us, or whether we use it for setting up our sales meeting. For example, I was thinking when you were talking about getting the email right using all that information, I'm like, set up your sales call, help yourself get your questions, use that same information to build the framework for that conversation you're going to have. But in every way, this generative AI can help us have better conversations and take away some administrative work. So anybody who's smart out there is going to be quickly figuring out that they can help companies train their sellers, train their customer facing people to use this very productively and free up even more time, which speaks to the another point you made, which is a really important one. Sometimes we add more sellers and we think that's going to get us more sales, but it doesn't. It just spreads the few leads we have even thinner, and it spreads the sales leaders' work even more because they have to manage and coach more people who are still not producing the total number that we need. So if each one of our sales people becomes a peak performer and more productive, if they can use the tools more wisely, they become better and better, and we don't need as many of them. So this is where I really see this generative AI and tools like yours being able to take us down this path where sellers can be so much more productive and can have real conversations, more real conversations with people who can buy from them every single day. And I just simply think that that is going to be the key. So, as we wrap up here, Usman, I really want to leave CEOs with a couple of things that they can do. So, it's not just your sellers. Trust me, everybody in your company is trying to figure out how they too can use ChatGPT. All right, there's a few who are going to be the laggards and they're not going to touch it, but there are people in your company already using it. And I definitely know that your sales team is trying to use it, but they're using it without any guidelines, without any company guidelines, right? They're using it without any training, and they're just kind of doing their own thing. So, Usman, speak to the CEOs that are listening and tell them what they should do to help implement all this because it's here. And whether you like it or not, your people are using it. So, what do they need to know and what do they need to do?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So remember when social media, LinkedIn and Twitter came out and everybody was out there? And it was very dangerous for companies because there was a lot of inside leaks that were happening on Twitter and so on. And so there had to be this social media training that had to be delivered across companies, what you can and cannot say on there. I think the barrier to entry with this generative AI and chat GPT is much lower. It's very easily accessible. And for $20 a month, you can get unlimited access to ChatGPT, and it doesn't have any lag times as well. Um, Couple of things that we need to be careful about. First of all, um, in terms of training salespeople, well, we'll come to training salespeople in a second. But first of all, what, how should they be using these generative AIs? Don't please allow your sales guys to write prospecting emails that talk about product pain points and business acumen using the current chat GPT model. Please come to something like an XIQ, or if there are other equivalents, I'm sure there will be some that are coming. Use those. Why? Because the currency of information really, really matters. Second, if you have the capability of adding that personality dimension to it, so you can write that personable email, that's really a huge asset. And that's something that you should not avoid using. You should really embrace that because you now have that capability. Thirdly, what I would say is that first, you now have up to date business acumen, you have the personality capabilities. The regeneration of these messages is really, really important. People say, okay, so cookie cutter approach, now you're going to write a lot of bad emails and send them out. No. Um, I go in there and I write an email, and sometimes it doesn't meet my mark. I just hit the regenerate button, I change the prompt a little bit, and within 10 seconds, I have a net new email and another new email. In 2 minutes, I could have gone through 12 different versions of that, iterations of that email. That is really, really impressive, right? So
Right.
now, to your point about productivity, my salesperson, and I'm coming to like what should be some of the barriers that should be put in place. My salesperson can actually generate decent emails, right? And emails that matter. However, I think what needs to be taught. So we've talked about the fact that, what are the guidelines of what you should and you shouldn't say. I would say pretty much the same policy you have on social media, you can pretty much apply it over here, right? Now, people are going to use it, right? As you said, there is no way to control what people do, right? There's absolutely no mechanism where we can come in, unless we just say simply, hey, it is banned, you can't go there. They'll go to their own personal browser. Everybody has their mobile devices. They'll go there and use it and copy paste it and send it over here. So it's very difficult to enforce that in a manner that is so apply the same rules and guidelines similar to the ones that you had around your social media posting policies. Use current databases and learn, teach the people. This is basic, going back to you, Alice, and this is basic 101 sales training. What is it that you want to say at a different stage of the cycle? So it goes back to that, right? Like learn, like how to diagnose a pain, learn how to craft your message, or say, what you want to say at that time. That's what's important. If you can get that logic built into people, the rest becomes tremendously easy. So it's really helping them train into selling your product or your service to the selling your product and service, train them on that, and they will then, the generative AI, especially with tools like ours, can really do the rest, right? But it's the prompt that goes in, asking it to kind of, what is the prompt? And last thing I will say is that we've got to, and it will happen, it will happen automatically as well. We cannot be judging new paradigms with old rules, right? You don't evaluate um, self-driving cars the same way you did when you had fossil fuel cars. You don't look at airplanes the same way as you look at trains, right? So generative AI, we're living in a new environment, new rules. Be fair to this technology. It is going to be adopted. So might as well embrace it, but embrace it knowingly, knowing what it can and it cannot do, and where you should go with it, right? That's very, very important. But it is going to happen, and there's going to be tremendous productivity gains, and people should be planning about those productivity gains. One other thing I'll say is, adding more salespeople to the cycle. It's not that easy anymore.
No.
Finding quality salespeople is a huge challenge. Investing in people that you already have and improving their game by giving them some tools, making them happier. And Alice, one thing we did not talk about that I want to talk to you about on your show is the well-being benefits, the wellness benefits that happen, right? Salespeople are under a lot of stress today, right? They have to write these high quality emails, they have to write them in a lot of volume, they have to show up on Monday mornings to defend their pipelines. There's a lot of stress that is created. Did you make 150 calls last week? Did you send 2000 emails last week? How many customer demos did you do? Right? There's a lot of time. And then on top of that, I have a fragmented tech landscape. Did you know how to use Salesforce? Do you know how to use Zoom Info? Do you know how to use LinkedIn Navigator? Do you know how to use in SalesLoft? Do you know how to use all of those tools? Sit there. When am I going to sell? Right? So that's a lot of pressure. In comes new way of selling, the new age of selling, and in that new age of selling, be able to construct an email that took half a day or a day versus being able to do it in 10 seconds frees up a lot of time. Not
Yeah.
only does it free up my time, my ability to jump up my 400% demos relieves a lot of stress on me. I was supposed to achieve that number. Well, guess what? I now have 400% more opportunities to generate that number, right? And in when you add all of these things up, it adds up being me having a better work life balance as a salesperson. The wellness aspect of this should not be underestimated, right? I'm going to be able to do a lot more, right? When we
Yeah.
were, we had to go into the office all the time. Well, for the last 15, 20 years, I've been sitting at lakes and on mountaintops using my phone and my laptop to have calls all over the world. I've freed myself from that desk, right? And today you can free yourself from a lot of this stress by being able to use these tools and use them in a clever, responsible manner, right? Being sure that what you're using is current, is going to give you up to date information, applying your common sense to what is written. That's something, at least hopefully most people should have, and be able to. But the tools will improve your game. The quality of what we are doing, the tools can bring it up. that level.
If they're used well, right? So we need to decide on how we're going to use them, train people to use them, monitor that use, and then I do agree it will absolutely bring everyone up. And just thinking about generative AI and communication, written and verbal communication, synchronous and asynchronous. Truly, the generative AI can help us through the entire life cycle of the customer. So your whole go to market team can improve using this generative AI, from the people who make others aware that your company even exists, right? Which is usually your marketing team, and all the way through to I'm your loyal customer and I'll scream it from the mountaintops. We can use these tools to help us with higher quality, value filled communication, which wins customers, keeps customers, and helps customers be highly successful. And so I really believe, the CEOs out there, hey, get this on the next meeting agenda if you haven't done this already. Talk to your leadership team about what you want to do about generative AI and AI in general, because as we have both been saying, they're using it anyway. And it's not just your sales team. We're talking about sales here, but it's not just your sales team. Others are using it too. So decide as a leadership team how you will approach the use of generative AI at your company, and then determine some guidelines like we did when social media first came out, and train everybody on those guidelines, and then train everybody on proper use of any kind of generative AI so they can increase their productivity rather than just, maybe they use ChatGPT to write something. And again, remembering that they didn't know that the information there stopped at September of 2021. And so their information is lacking, right? So whatever they're doing, whether it's research or their engineering, it's the same, but for sales specifically, right? And then think about how you can use this generative AI to give the customer facing people at your company more business acumen, because that's what they need to have these value filled conversations, to pique interest, pique curiosity, maintain that interest, and continue to add value to the people who buy from them for the first time and continue buying from them. I truly believe there's a great future for this if you take it in at your company at the senior level and really understand how you're going to help your company use it. But it does require guidelines, it does require training, and it does require monitoring. Oh my gosh. All right, last words, Usman, and then we got to close up the show today.
Yeah, so I think, as you said, AI is here to stay. We need to know how to dance with it, how to live with it. And I think that it's not going to be that difficult. I mean, yes, of course, any new technology has its downsides as well. And one other thing, it's very much in its infantile stage right now. It's very, very early days, right? Is it going to replace people's job? I don't think so. I think it's going to augment and bring the level up, right? If you've played sports, I used to play a lot of squash. And whenever I played squash with somebody that was better with me, my game improved, right? And that's what this is. This is kind of like this virtual assistant. As a matter of fact, XIQ has this virtual assistant. So I just a couple of kind of projections as to where all of this is going. And we call this virtual assistant Gilroy, right? So today you can ask really basic questions, but we're going to build a prompt library, talk about guidelines. We're going to be building a prompt library that salespeople will be able to use so that the questions it asks are responsible questions for the different stages. So these prompt libraries, again, you know, training training doesn't have to be the old traditional, you know, draconian kind of training that used to happen, right? We can actually train people in a much simpler manner. Hey, this prompt applies to this particular
Yeah.
stage, and the rest, the personalization, the craft, the art, the magic of putting it together, tools will do help you do that, right? And so that's going to be very, very interesting. So this prompt library is going to come in. And then secondly, around business acumen, the direction we are taking is to be able to use these more complex prompts. The
Yeah.
button will say generate an account plan, But behind generating an account plan will be a whole set of instructions that are out there that are very detailed as to what specific pieces you need to go do the risk, pick the risk assessment from the annual report, pick the product information from here, identify the people that would best fit it. All of that will happen. But in seconds, this thing will be available, and it's not that far out, right? It's not that far away. We're heading in that direction. So AI is here. Figure out strategies on how to improve it, to embrace it, to bring it into your culture. Because as Alice said, they're using it. They will continue to use it. It's unavoidable. Hottest term out there right now is Chat GPT. Let's face it, right? There's a reason for that. And it's not just kids on TikTok or on Instagram trending over here. That's business people. That's the hottest term, right? And so, how do we incorporate it? Establish some basic guidelines around it, and put a responsible policy of, and the rate of innovation, Alice. My God, our game plan, our product team has said every 2 weeks they want to bring in innovation. Every 2 weeks, right? So the rate of, and Chat GPT itself has been brilliant in this regard. It came out in November, and look where it is right now. The amount it's spread all over the world. The new things that they've given us an API. So information that you feed into XIQ stays in XIQ. It doesn't become part of the learning model of ChatGPT itself. Yes, ChatGPT maintains some of that content, which, by the way, is anonymous when it comes from us, but it retains it more for compliance reasons and security reasons, and deletes it after 30 days. But it doesn't use it for training um, its algorithm. And so they're being somewhat responsible, and we can be equally responsible. And I think the advantages far outweigh the risks at this particular.
Absolutely. They definitely do. So, with that, thank you so much for being on the show today. You can follow Usman on LinkedIn for sure. And how else can they find you?
So our website is www.xiqinc.com. That's a great place to start. My LinkedIn, as Alice mentioned, always there.
Connect with him on LinkedIn, follow him. He's always posting great information about AI. So thanks again for being on the show. And I'm sure we'll be chatting more about this entire topic soon.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Alice. Appreciate that.
If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.